Welcome to The View, where recruitment, marketing and society comes together.
Hello, this episode we are talking about AI. Bluntly, are the robots coming and are they going to take all of our jobs in recruitment? Do you believe AI is a force for good or a force for bad? I'm talking today with Sven Elbert. He's a technology analyst, and frankly, what he doesn't know about technology isn't worth knowing. My name's Neil Armstrong. This is The View, where people, technology, recruitment and purpose come together. Hi Sven, how are you?
Very good, Neil. Good to meet you, and hello everyone. Thanks for listening in.
Great. So Sven, before we get too deep into the future of talent technology, why don't we find out a little bit more about you? You're one of the most knowledgeable people out there when it comes to talent technology. What do you do in a day-to-day?
Yeah, well, calling me one of the most knowledgeable people might be a bit generous, but thank you. And obviously, I'm now a bit of an old bone, as we say in German. That doesn't translate particularly well, I think. But I stumbled in tech almost by accident from university and working at in the internet days when it first started, when AOL was big and Lycos and this strange company called Amazon had just acquired a German e-commerce company. And during that time, we introduced a skills management system into one of the largest German media companies. So I was on the HR learning kind of side of that. And then the bubble kind of burst and I moved onto the vendor side and had the pleasure of introducing, skills solutions, 24 years back, right? And all of a sudden, the topic is now back on the hype cycle, quite high up now. And then I implemented solutions, worked with very large clients to get their HR concepts implemented into technology. And yeah, it's really an honor to be working it's in a humble position with so many talented people across the industry, so many TA leaders, HR leaders, but also on the vendor side, obviously, we get briefed with the most recent kind of news and updates every now and then. We're currently in the what we call the 9-grid cycle, so our big research into the talent acquisition market, and obviously that is back-to-back calls and briefings, and we help. Corporates take buying decisions and accelerate and de-risk them, and see how they can evolve the ecosystem. How they can evolve their HR operations, their TA operations, and those kind of things.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So essentially, your role is finding out all about the best HR tech that's out there, and then helping corporates understand what the future looks like and how they can take advantage of this great technology.
Yeah, there's a lot of hype out there, right? So a lot of the job is kind of demystifying that a little bit and seeing what is actually working, how does it implement into real life, people's lives, and how does it affect what works well with what other technology, and what benefits and outcomes can organizations strive from it. So that is a lot of the job as well.
Yeah. Okay. And you talked there about deploying HR technology solutions sort of 25 years ago. It seems like technology has become a larger and larger part of many jobs, but particularly within HR and talent. Where do you think we are on sort of the adoption curve of technology? Do you think we're going to see more and more, or are we reaching peak technology where people can't cope with more tech?
Yeah, well, as you can tell by my accent, I live in Germany. So Germany was particularly slow on digital transformation. So COVID did, it did a lot of bad things, but for digital transformation to HR, I thought it also did a lot of good things because it accelerated a lot of organizations. And in the space for so many years, TA has been of the early segments that has moved to the cloud, that has moved, to an ecosystem market where you always had to be integrated with the latest job boards. The social networks came on, you wanted to dip into this audience and that audience, and so on. So on. The market is evolving very fast, and I guess from that perspective, most companies already have a TA solution in place. It's probably already the second or third solution, possibly.
Yeah.
So the market has become a replacement market. In the old days, when we were still printing job ads in newspapers, which some organizations actually do, and I was recently briefed actually on somebody who was saying that they were printing of CVs again and that kind of stuff. And moving to 2025, I find it a bit strange. But hey, that's still the reality of some organizations out there, right? So
yeah, and it seems, as you say, varies by country, by culture, by industry, I guess, by size of business as well. But something that's sort of common, particularly across Europe and in the UK, we're now officially back in recession. So with these pressures that businesses have in terms of becoming more efficient and more productive, there are tighter budgets. What's your take on what that means for use of technology, particularly in talent acquisition?
Yeah, so I think if you ask me how 2023 was for talent acquisition tech, I would say it is a bit like a British summer holiday. You pack your swimsuit, but then you end up needing a bit of an umbrella, right? So it was certainly something where many were struggling. Some still got reasonably good growth rates and everything, but it wasn't like the greatest period or year of all.
Yeah.
And in 2023, I think we're just learning to dance in the rain. And
I like your analogies. These are great.
There's probably hope for a better spring and summer.
Yep.
But I mean, that depends on so many factors which are beyond everybody's control, right? So I agree. Yes, we are seeing tighter budgets, less recruitment in some areas. In some areas, it's still going on quite a lot, of course, and definitely a greater need to be doing more with less. So I think the good news, however, though, is that many corporates are still looking to increase their spend on HR tech and productivity. You need to have these tools in place. Doing everything on paper, manually with Outlook, and I mean, Excel is great, right? Nothing against Excel, but that is not the way to do these things in 2025 anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing you mentioned just earlier was around helping corporates sort of demystify the technology, where there are, every year there's a new buzzword, right? And a couple of years ago it was blockchain, and then it was 5G, and then it was Internet of Things, and without a doubt, AI is on everybody's lips at the moment. Let's go for the big question: is it going to come and take all of our jobs? What's your take on this?
Well, I would say yes, but in a good way. So it's impacting our jobs already today. So I think of it. I think of AI in maybe if we narrow it down to recruitment a little bit for the moment, maybe. I think of it as this enthusiastic new intern that you have in your recruitment department, and like really eager and super efficient at doing some things like sorting files or whatever. But you still need this human team to make sense of the big picture. And while AI might be great at sifting through resumes quickly, or or maybe even scheduling some interviews without breaking a sweat, it's not quite ready yet to master the art of the this firm handshake with a candidate, the smile that that you deliver when you can seal the work contract. So the recruiting is a human to human interaction.
Yeah.
Right. And I've seen technology that does avatar AI interviewing, but do I want to be interviewed by an AI avatar?
Yeah.
For my primary job? I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
And the answer is probably not, right? So I think we have to make sense of all of this. I would think of it more as an assistant. We want people to be in the driving seat of making those decisions. And so AI is, in a way, changing our jobs. It's, in that sense, maybe coming for our jobs, but will we all be replaced by it? Not in 2024.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting what you say there in terms of, it's here, it's coming, it's inevitable, and it's going to change all sorts of things. I was at a recruitment technology conference very, very recently, and we sort of asked the audience, have you already received a CV that's been created by AI? And 100% of people in the room put their hands up. Yep, we're already seeing CVs from AI. And when we said, is this an increasing problem? Almost everybody kept their hands up. Now, So they know the problems there, but when it comes to the sort of education levels of, okay, well, what can we do about it? What does it mean for us? Somebody put up lazyapply.com on the screen. So this is the tool where you can sign up for a few dollars, and I think you can do 750 job applications a day. And only a really small proportion of recruiters in the room were aware of this tool. So it's it speaks to a problem to me that we know that there's this thing AI that's coming and it's here and it's getting worse, but we actually still don't understand what it is and how it's being used. So yeah, I wonder what your view of that is in terms of how ready organizations are for this AI trend.
Yeah, so I mean, we've done a bit of research and asked some questions to our EMEA audience, and a lot of the organizations are, saying that they have started. Like about 40% say that they have started on the AI journey. 34% were exploring. Only 4% were saying that they were really advanced or quite advanced. 8%. So I think it's certainly something where awareness is there, and people do expect that it is going to impact them a lot. But February 2024, it is really still early days, and the education level is still a bit low. There's pilots going on in the companies. Many have decided to start with, maybe a general co-pilot that generally helps the entire workforce being a bit more productive in creating documents and producing content and text. Some organizations are a bit more advanced, are building out some agents, GPTs already for more custom use cases. And I mean, from a vendor perspective, there's no conversation. Within 5 minutes, the word AI is dropped to us as analysts. So I mean, 5 minutes is already a bit of a long time. That it is not mentioned. So it's definitely something, I guess, where we see that it will impact us, and it is impacting us already in so many ways, right? In our technologies, we don't even notice it. So Internet of Things, like if I say, I can't say her name. I spell it out, Alexa. So if I turn the radiator up, it would get warmer here, right? I wouldn't need the jacket. I wouldn't need the pullover, right? So the things are making a fundamental difference. It's just obviously there is still, if you want like a $7 trillion investment in your chips, then obviously you need to create a big hype, right? Otherwise you won't be able to get the money of your investors, right? So I think that is what we're seeing. It has potential. So some of the things are really quite stunning, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, in terms of that sort of investment cycle, clearly, the large technology companies, typically in Silicon Valley, but in China and India as well, are investing heavily in AI, and therefore we can probably all bet that it is going to have a big influence on our lives, both positive and negative. And quite often in the media we hear the negative stories, there's going to be killer AI and the robots are going to kill us all and all that sort of stuff. But that tends to just gather the headlines and doesn't really represent the truth, in my opinion. What are the in your role, what are the sort of positive use cases you're coming across and that you're seeing, both in perhaps in corporates, but also that are perhaps benefiting the candidates, the job seekers?
Yeah, so I think for recruiters and hiring managers, it's a lot around productivity, around quality, around speed, where AI can actually help you be more productive. So think of it as a bit of a superhero cape that you get, and it's all accelerating your work and gives you more time to actually talk to people, virtually or in the real world, which I think is where recruiters are best, right? And so from that perspective, I think that will definitely help. From the candidate's perspective, it is probably around the experience, I would say, not having to wait for responses for very long. You immediately know where you stand, get engagement faster, possibly get the job faster if you are qualified, but also getting the no faster is not a bad thing, right? So from that perspective, I think it's probably more on the personalization side of like how long do I need to browse the career side before I get to the job that I'm like really interested in, and how can I engage around that quickly, but also meaningfully. Is one of the things for the candidates, I think, that will help them the most.
So all about efficiency on both sides of the equation for the candidate and the recruiter, finding a better role faster, finding a better candidate faster. In terms of bias in the recruitment process, we often hear, particularly technology vendors, saying, hey, buy our technology, it will make your process fairer. But then we also have the equal concern from people that, well, how can I trust the technology to make a fair decision? It's all been coded by rich white guys in California. Do they represent me? So, and if there's this black box making a decision, how can I trust that? So I wouldn't. I'm interested in your thoughts on whether AI is going to be helpful to making things fairer in recruitment, or actually it could make it worse.
Well, that depends on how it's been trained, right? And that is obviously the key thing there. So I think asking the question is already a really good and important starting point. In our survey, we found out that actually about 30, and this is shocking, really shocking, 30% said they hadn't really looked at the ethical use, whether it was introducing bias or not, right? So actually, then looking at these things is really, really important. And you need to challenge your vendors around it. You need to challenge your own practices. What GDPR did was it set this standard level of, what does good look like, right? What does good, well, you could say it's a bit German over-engineered or whatever, but I think the gist of it is that you want to deal with your employee data very responsibly, right? And so it's the same as with AI. So if we had a bit of like a third party that was able to audit what our vendors, what our employers were doing with AI, and how they were actually using it to make hiring decisions or other HR personnel decisions, then I think we would have more transparency. So you need probably a third party to audit this. And I mean, there's probably a new industry springing up that is doing just that right now. And I think that is definitely important to us, the question. So many corporates have probably formed teams with their legal department, with HR, with IT folks, to actually look at that, to develop some policies around that, and actually making sure that this gets introduced to the organizations. Because as you said, as we probably discussed a little bit, the sophistication is still a little bit lower for many organizations, and the larger ones obviously have a bit of an advantage because they have big legal departments and big IT departments, whereas smaller ones don't have that luxury really.
So it seems like there's a kind of inevitable journey towards some sort of regulation and accreditation of artificial intelligence, and whether that's driven by Europe or the US or individual countries, who knows, right?
So I think many of the vendors have actually in their positioning their AI products here in Europe, they have actually taken a very responsible view, focused on the explainability of what AI recommendations were. So I think those are the things that you as a buyer need to look out for, that you can actually ask it, why do you think that this person ends up at whatever 78% match score, right? And if you can't really interrogate that or challenge that, then what does that 78% really say, right? Because it's almost a black box. And should that really be, the criteria on which basis we sort our applicant list, right? And I guess from that perspective, it's really important to look behind the scenes and ask the vendors, what are they doing, and do they have external proof as well to be audited or at least evaluated based on some of their current practices, and does an independent third party certify that?
And that sounds like you gave the example of a matching score there, where I think we'd like to see the technology assisting and enabling the recruiter and providing information on which a human then makes a hiring decision, right? We don't want a black box that just says you get the job, you don't get the job, with nobody understanding why or how that decision's been made.
Yeah, and I mean, so there's legislation that probably forbids this in many European countries anyway. So I think ultimately it needs to be a human that takes the decision. And also a lot of what the vendors are doing is actually playing towards that end goal of like, okay, we want you to make better decisions and then reducing bias.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the decisions that we are taking are actually full of bias.
Yeah.
So I think the AI is, as much is a threat, it is also an opportunity to perhaps be a bit more fair and unbiased in a lot of the decisions we are taking every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a minute ago, you talked about how the AI is trained, and that being so important in terms of whether it's biased or not. There was a recent example, I think, from DPD, the parcel company, where they had a customer service chatbot started swearing at the customers. Now, I think somebody had manipulated it to try and make it do that, just to generate a bit of clickbait story. But I wonder if you think, what do you think we should learn from this, and what should recruiters be cautious about from that tale?
Well, so I mean, if you ask a chatbot to use swear words against you, I would say don't be surprised if it does just that. There should probably some things, policies in the background telling it to be only, positive and respectful, and that needs to be engraved at a very deep level of the technological architecture. So it should also, follow all, like the Human Rights Charter, and be concerned about human safety and security at all times. Transcending now a chatbot on the career website, but any AI really should be not harmful. And we obviously don't want a Terminator movie going on, right? So I guess, but coming back to this particular case, which I have no really, more insight than anyone who has read the article probably. So I think making sure that you have some tests automated that actually tests what the chatbot responds to some of those, maybe harmful starts of a conversation, I think might be something that you can actually automate relatively easily from a company perspective. And then also ask your vendors again, what safeguards are in place that this doesn't happen. If you ship a new update, can this go wrong? And make sure that this doesn't happen, right? So as a German, Germans, we always like to design the compliance around the thing first before we actually build it or whatever. And I don't think that this is the best approach. But certainly it is something to think about when you actually implement these things, to make them like idiot proof a little bit. And certainly, I mean, if AI is giving more and more answers to people about your company policies, and I mean, now maybe not even in TA, but also internally around pay policies or whatever, you have to have the right answers. Or no answer at all. It should just say, hey, I don't know. It's better than giving a false or wrong answer. And I think that the same is true, obviously, on the candidate side. If it doesn't know, just refer it to a human being who can actually then answer the question properly.
Yeah, absolutely. So thinking a little more widely now, not specifically AI. Something we quite often come across is, we'll attend a conference where corporates, recruiters, TA professionals are talking about their technology, and it seems like everybody always hates their ATS, and they always think the grass is greener somewhere else, and everybody has their favorite and their least favorite. I wonder, what's your take on why is that happening? Why are so many organizations dissatisfied with the technology they have?
That is a very good question. So let me think about this a little bit. So I think we do see from our research that a lot of companies are actually struggling to deliver the employee experience or the candidate experience they want to be delivering. And a lot of this has led to initiatives to simplify things, to make processes easier, to make decisions faster, and those kind of things. So I think that is a lot of what needs to be done. But then there's also like, how do you tailor these messages? How do you communicate and engage with your workforce in a more meaningful way? How do you personalize messages a lot more? So I think see the individual is really important also for the technology, and not just stopping at a one size fits all kind of messaging. And this is also what the candidates would really like. They don't want to be a number. They don't want to go through an automated workflow and be hired without any human interaction.
It seems to me that the role of technology should be to automated way the administration and enable a consistent process and free up the time so that TA professionals can make that human connection that's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And so from that perspective, I think we need to really double down on this experience part of the story to really think about what experience do we want to create, and how can we also back it up with the resources or the automation, and how does it all play together. If we do something that improves candidate experience, it almost has a negative impact on the hiring manager or the recruiter experience. Whereas if we make things easier for the recruiter, we're almost immediately impacting the candidate. So there's this balance, I guess, that you kind of need to find, or be very thoughtful about, what if you kind of say, okay, we remove the CV as something that candidates have to upload very early on in the process. We just allow them to put in the email, maybe a LinkedIn profile, and then we will call them and engage with them and all of that. Then obviously that is one decision that has a significant impact on your workload. And so then that makes it easier. But definitely, I think it is important to have the conversation between recruiter and hiring manager early on about what the challenges will be in filling that role. If it's easy to fill a role, if it's more difficult to fill the role, and then how easy or how difficult do we want it to make for people to apply? Because as you said, you can have 750 applications a day very easily nowadays, and also relatively well tailored to the role, right? So then how do you sift through all of those kind of candidates is becoming the problem. So stop advertising as soon as you have enough kind of candidates. I think those conversations are really important, and they oftentimes are at this line between recruiter and candidate experience, or hiring manager experience and candidate experience.
Thank you for that. And another challenge we often see that recruiters face is they're seen as sort of a tactical, reactive. They're an overhead within the business. They're quite often the target for cost cutting. They find it difficult to get access to budget and resource, particularly for new technology. What do you think TA leaders can do to sort of elevate their standing within an organization so they're taken more seriously as a strategic part of the business?
Yeah, well, I mean, we need to understand and prove our value every day, right? And so I guess everybody can ask themselves, are they doing enough to understand and benchmark, time to hire, quality of hire, and then where does that get created? So if you are able to build long-term relationships with your candidates in your talent pool, and then you can hire them in faster when the economy picks up. I think then that is really important, right? To have these proof points to the business to say, okay, we need to invest. Even in a time when we are not hiring, we need to invest in those tools, into maturing our TA function to be better able to, be more efficient in the next wave of hire, in the next phase of growth. And balancing that out, I think, is really quite important, particularly during these, you talked about the economic headwinds that we're facing at the moment.
And with those economic headwinds in mind, you started with the beautiful analogy of dancing in the rain in a British summer holiday. So if 2024 is going to be a tough year for organizations, what do you think are the big trends perhaps looking forwards into 2025 in terms of talent acquisition technology?
So I think definitely look at AI. Many vendors are starting to build that into their products. So look at how that can benefit you, how you can adopt it. Many have already started doing it directly with maybe ChatGPT or something if they're allowed to use it.
Yeah.
To help them write job descriptions, to write interview questions, the usual kind of things. And I think that is definitely where we see people get more sophisticated with the prompts, and technology vendors being able to create better results now. But it is still it's still a curve that definitely people need to walk up, a learning curve, right? So
Yeah.
2025, I would probably also look at, coming back to this equation, are the AIs battling it out, the candidate, massaging the CV or pimping it in a very nice way, and then your AI internally looking at it and kind of arriving at it, oh, this is an 80% match or whatever. So think about, how do you assess skills? How can you objectively assess somebody's capabilities? And the answer is probably, and we know this, I guess, right? The offer letter, why are we even asking for offer letters?
Absolutely
they have
terrible.
really objectively relatively very little value in predicting somebody's future job performance. And the CV is probably guilty of that. We are overly giving it too much weight, perhaps.
Yes.
So I think about, how can you ingrain and embed these assessments earlier on in your recruitment funnel, and get a better picture of that.
That's great. Sven, thank you very much. And any sort of final thoughts you have on talent technology and what the future holds for perhaps smaller organizations as well as larger ones?
Yeah, well, so I'm when it comes to AI, I'm probably more an optimist than a pessimist, and I've always preferred watching Star Trek over Battlestar Galactica, and so I think of how you can leverage that technology. Particularly, I think for small organizations, it can actually make a difference and help nudge and educate and move things forward for you, and make you much more productive. And this is true also for large organizations. So educate yourself about it is really important, because everybody else is doing it, and if you don't, then you are at a disadvantage. But enjoy the ride, right? And have fun with it, because it still does some that word is so difficult to pronounce, some idiotic kind of things, and you think, oh my God, how can you answer like this? So keep an open mind, but enjoy the ride, I think, is whatever comes with technology is always a good motto, I think.
And that seems like a great place to end. Sven Elbert, thank you very, very much for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thank you, Neil. Have a good day.
Cheers, you too. Thanks so much for watching it and listening. It was fascinating speaking with Sven. I'm glad to hear that he's a technology optimist, believes AI is generally a force to good, but look out for those idiosyncrasies as we dance in the British rain together over the next few years. So thank you. Do tell a friend and subscribe to The View at tribepad.com/The View.